Demonstration method. It involves presenting visuals in a step-by-step process to teach something, and is a great way to encourage active student participation. The basic principle of the demonstration method is learning by seeing and doing. In a fine art class, the teacher would demonstrate with visuals all the stages needed to create a piece of art accurately for the first time. The students would learn by watching the teacher complete the task and then try to reciprocate what they saw. This method should be carried out with a well-planned strategy, and the exercise's goals and objectives should be clear to both educators and learners. The Fineman Technique. This learning technique is effective for learning something new or deepening your understanding of what you already know. The first step is to pick a topic you want to understand and study. Once you have an idea, write and speak about what you've learned as if you're teaching it to another person. This process makes you realize which parts you understand and where you still have gaps. Repeat the whole process, but this time, write in a language that is very easy to understand. Thinking about an idea by explaining it makes this learning method very effective, because once you can describe a concept in simple language, you have deeply understood it and will remember it for a long time. Experiential learning. Experience is usually the best teacher, which helps explain why this method is effective. By age 1, we all had our painful encounters with experiential learning when we tried to walk, failed, fell, and cried like babies. Even though this was an unpleasant and discouraging exercise that lasted for months, we all made it in the end. As soon as we fell and cried, the first shock was over, and our brains began to unconsciously make sense of all the processes and steps to identify how this embarrassment occurred. The brain remembers that everything was fine when we pushed ourselves up, but the minute our leg and hand muscles didn't comply with the forward movement, everything failed. This is how our brain analyzes the relationship between events within our body and the environment. It happens all the time as we learn to walk, talk, kiss, fail an exam, function in a fancy office, or dance the salsa. Once we understand the connections between what went wrong, we know what needs to change when we try the next time. Peer tutoring. Research has proved that students who teach or tutor other students score higher than students who only learn for themselves. This is because to teach someone, you must understand the material perfectly to recall it more accurately. The more you explain it to another person, the more your brain memorizes and stores the information. It's similar to how teachers improve over the years when teaching a particular course. They have to understand the subject in depth to pass across the message effectively, and as they teach, they will also note the areas they need help understanding and try to know it better next time. In learning, the person who talks the most about a concept is the person who learns the most. Program teaching. Whether the medium is a textbook or the internet, programmed learning is a step-by-step learning process that consists of 3 parts. The first part is to present the questions, facts, or problems to the learner, then allow the person to respond, and then provide feedback on the accuracy of answers with instructions on what to do next. Generally, programmed learning presents facts and follow-up questions frame by frame. The next question often depends on how the learner answers the previous question. This learning method reduces training time and facilitates learning by letting the students learn at their own pace, getting immediate feedback, and reducing the risk of error. Homework method. Most kids hate homework. The idea that they have to work on problems in school and still come home with a bunch of them. However, the homework method allows students to plan, perform, and then work independently with guidance and help provided by the teacher. It supplements the teacher's work done in the class and gives the teacher an insight into how well her students understood the lesson. Suppose a higher percentage of the class fails after the homework is submitted. In that case, they probably did not understand the lesson. It allows the teacher to use another learning method for those who failed the assignments and figure out how to help them perform better in class effectively. The Montessori Method. Montessori schools use the ideas of Maria Montessori, who started her first school in 1907 in Rome for workers' kids. Simply put, Montessori is a scientifically founded method of educating children founded on the belief that a child's education should be constructed to develop every aspect of the child's social, emotional, physical, and academic welfare. In the Montessori method, students are free to choose what they learn in open classrooms that allow free movement and the use of socialized Montessori materials. They have mixed-age classes, so children can learn from each other and have uninterrupted blocks of study time, usually 3 hours, no grading or homework, and a trained teacher. Debate method. Debating involves students expressing their opinions from 2 competing perspectives to contradict each other's arguments. Using the debate method as a learning method involves having students discuss and organize their viewpoints for one side of an argument. Classroom debates help students learn through friendly competition, examining controversial topics to strengthen their skills in public speaking, leadership, and team building. Students who learn with the debate method get the opportunity to defend and analyze their topics, giving the pros and cons of why they think the public should agree with their own opinions. This creates a learning environment that applies critical thinking and active participation, and students can explore real-world problems, topics, and issues. It also prepares students to be more comfortable engaging in dialogue relating to their beliefs and areas of study. Storytelling method. Storytelling is narrating a tale from memory rather than reading. It is one of the oldest art forms, dating back to prehistoric times. Storytelling fosters emotional intelligence and promotes language learning by enriching students' vocabulary. Through traditional tales, people express their values, fears, hopes, and dreams, and listeners experience feelings for the past and insight into the motives and patterns of human behavior. Stories are motivating and fun and help students develop a positive attitude toward learning a language or understanding a concept. Children become personally involved in a story as they identify with the characters and try to interpret the narrative and illustration. This imaginative experience helps develop their creative powers. Cooperative learning. Ideally, teachers should come to class with different lesson plans every day. They should change things up every time, allow the students to hear the voice of someone different, and allow them to listen to their peers. This way, the students can get a break from the boring teacher learning. This is what cooperative learning is all about. In cooperative learning, students are taught life skills needed to survive in the outside world, such as cooperating and working with people in groups and teams. Cooperative learning teaches that ultimately, individuals are smarter together in a group than they are alone. Students are grouped in cooperative learning based on their performance levels in academic and schoolwork. There is a homogeneous grouping for students with highly similar performance levels and heterogeneous groupings for different performance levels. Role-playing method. Role-playing is a form of experiential learning where students take on assigned roles and act on those roles through a scripted play. The role play can be done by an individual or a group, with each group member taking on a particular character. Role plays can provide compelling learning experience for students by immersing them in simulated real-world situations in which they act out a particular character role in a safe environment. In history class, students might pretend to be famous people from the past and have conversations like they're living in that time. Role play helps students understand and remember things better because they're actively involved and using their imagination. Dual coding. Many effective teachers use dual coding methods to teach, providing students with visual and verbal materials simultaneously to help them remember concepts faster. They combine visual aids such as diagrams, graphs, and illustrations with explanations to enhance students' ability to understand and remember information faster. For instance, while teaching history, many teachers create history timelines to help students remember important dates. Chunking. Chunking is used to split large amounts of information into smaller, more manageable sections for easier understanding. In the chunking method of teaching, related items are grouped so that they can be remembered more easily. Learning can be chunked by making connections using numbers and creating effective acronyms for letters and names into different groups. For example, the colors of the rainbow are chunked into an acronym known as ROY-G-BIV. This creates a mindset for faster understanding and remembrance, as the first letter of each word is used to form the acronym. The chunking method is helpful because it breaks down facts using smaller, familiar terms the student is most confident with. Mnemonics. While the human brain can be an incredible storage device, it is much easier to store information by building connections between new and previous knowledge. The mnemonic learning method applies songs and rhymes to help students recall lessons and improve memory. Nursery rhymes are a great example of mnemonic learning, and studies have proved that a significant percentage of adults remember correctly all the rhymes they learned in school. They are a handy and effective way to boost memory and store important information that might be hard to remember. Concept mapping. Concept mapping is a great way to represent information on a subject and shows how concepts from the most general to the most specific relate to each other. It is usually a diagram or graphic that includes ideas shown in circles or boxes relating to each other through lines. If you've ever practiced drawing out your family tree from the great-grandfather to the last person, then you have a good idea of concept mapping. Concept mapping is a vital tool for learning information and breaking down knowledge. Spaced repetition. The idea behind spaced repetition is that the brain learns best when it is forced to remember the correct answer. It is a way of learning through active recall, and the spaced part refers to the time gaps between studies. You might learn something new in class, review the information immediately, and then actively recall the information in a few hours, days, and weeks. The intervals for spacing the study depend on how much new information you have and how difficult the information is. Students who study through this practice have a better understanding because they practice and recall the information repeatedly between intervals. Interleaved practice. When learning two or more related concepts together, instead of focusing exclusively on one topic at a time, Taking turns between the two can be helpful. For example, during a study session, a student could devote some time to math, chemistry, and biology, and then cycle back through the topics. When studying math, instead of practicing all addition problems, the interleaving method advises studying a few additions, a few subtractions, then a few division problems, and then rotating the process again. Interleaving trains the student's brain to move between concepts. So when a topic is being taught, the teacher should take time to explain and then move to another concept before returning to the initial topic. This technique helps the students retain information better because they are not just memorizing facts and figures. Pomodoro Technique. Set your timer for 25 minutes and focus on a single topic until the timer rings. When the session ends, mark off one Pomodoro and record what you accomplished. Enjoy a 5-minute break, and after 4 Pomodoros, take a more extended 15 to 30-minute break and revise what you've accomplished. This is basically what the Pomodoro technique entails. It explains that time could be turned into a friend rather than a cause for anxiety. It trains students to focus on studying better by limiting the time frame and rewarding effort by giving restorative breaks. This method helps overcome the tendency to procrastinate and multitask. Self-explanation. This method is self-explanatory. Have you ever read or seen something difficult and needed more clarification in simpler terms? Do you take the time to reread it and explain the problematic terms in very easy layman's words for better understanding? This is what self-explanation means. Self-explanation is the act of personally breaking down terms and concepts in a way and method that you can understand and explain. New information is explained and related to something you already know and other parts of the topic.